Welcome to the Security by Default podcast. I'm Joseph Carson, host of the show. In each episode, we make cybersecurity simple with amazing guests who share real-world experiences and insights. So let's get security by default. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Security by Default podcast. I'm the host of the show, Joe Carson. It's a pleasure to have you all here. And what we really hear this episode and podcast is all about bringing clarity to the world of chaos that we live in the cybersecurity world. And it's always muddy. It's always kind of like a very kind of scary place. But we really need to kind of rethink it. We really need to look at how can we make this world much more fun, much more enjoyable. So I'm welcome to the episode today as a special guest. Gary, welcome to the podcast. So this is your first time on the podcast. So if you want to give the audience a bit of a background about you, how you got into this industry, did you choose it? Did it choose you? And let's get, and think about what some of the things that we can do to make the world a fun place.
Well, I'll turn it over to you with one quick guidance. So I'll say on a scale of 1 to 10, the scary part is, let's say 1. And then the fun part is 10. Where do you think would be best for your audience?
For the audience, I want it to be 10. I want the audience to laugh.
Got it.
I like it to be, a good comedy. I like some of the old school stuff as well. So for me, unfortunately, the cybersecurity world we live in on a daily basis isn't a 1. So right now, because it's always fear. How did you get into the industry? What's your background? What did you start off with? Is your career?
Well, I'm going to go with. Let's settle on a 7, just to be reasonable. So, the arc, to answer your question, I'll use something you see from my background. One of the many things that I do is the Cyber Hero adventure show in comics, and we do exactly what your intention is for your audience, which is to try to pivot from FUD, which everyone knows is fear, uncertainty, and doubt, which is on the one end of the spectrum, the 10 end of the spectrum, to fun. So from FUD to fun, like how do you go about doing that? Way, in my case, do I do it? So you're familiar with Forrest Gump, the movie?
Yes, I am indeed.
So my credibility, if any, is I have none, because I am the Forrest Gump of cybersecurity. I just bump into the most bizarre, strange, exciting, brilliant, genius people, and I'm going like, what? And I just show up. And so to be more specific about that, I had a very successful marketing research and data analytics company for a long time. My wife and I started from nothing. We were very grateful for that and sold half of it to a very large company. And I knew nothing about cybersecurity really at all. And at that time, it wasn't a thing. Like, there's no straight line to cybersecurity careers, and paths that you and your audience know, all too well. It's always serpentine, like, different things, different motivations and different skills and things like that. So to make a very long and complicated story short, things were going great until one day a 1 hit and we were attacked by, in retrospective, we came to understand some nation state stuff. And, I won't delve into that too much because you want to keep it fun, but it was, we ended up losing everything, like over time, several $1 million, and had to close the company. And I was grumpy, as anybody would be.
You would be.
Yeah, grumpy. I mean,
when you have
I don't know if you have like a beep thing or not, but if you let it run for a minute, I can fill it with expletives. But I'll just say grumpy. Anyways, so I guess I learned 2 things about that. One is being a victim is not unique. There's so many injustices in the world and so many victims of so many different things. But the more foundational thing for my second half of my life was it's just exhausting. So after years of being really grumpy, I decided to pivot to become an advocate. But what is that? And that's where the Forrest Gump stuff started to happen. So I bought a book called Cybersecurity for Dummies. You've seen those yellow books like with the black stripes on it. I figured, okay, perfect. I'm very self-aware, But page 10 of that book, Joe, I was lost. And so rather than quitting, I found the company that put it out, Palo Alto Networks. And it took me 19 phone calls over a 6-month period. I finally got the author, who was the CISO at the time, great guy, And so my name's Gary, of course, and he picks up the phone and he goes, "Hey, Mike, how's it going?" I go, "No, it's Gary Berman." I hear him go, "Oh, shit." He picked up the wrong line. And then he goes, "What can I do for you?" Which is not like that, like a warm welcome. But I understood that, I mean, the guy's busy. He didn't know me from anything. And anyways, turns out he's a great guy. I told him this story and he busts out laughing. And I said, his name is Rick Howard. And I said, "Mr. Howard, may I ask why you're laughing so hard?" And he kind of catches his breath. He goes, "Well, it's not really for beginners. And why do you call it cybersecurity for dummies?" And that was my foray into this notion of trying to pivot from FUD to fun. And so I had to overcome a couple quick things. I'll make it short to say I didn't know anyone in the community or anything about the topic or even superhero comics for that matter. But other than that, I was like perfect in my deluded Forrest Gump brain. And so I went on LinkedIn and one at a time over about a 10-month period, I think it was, I invited CISOs and CSOs and other C-level people to connect with me to send me real life stories of cybercrime, answering the questions like what happened, what were the consequences, what were the lessons learned for possible inclusion into, the cyber hero adventure. And I went to 54 cybersecurity conferences. You and I had talked about that prior, and I wear a costume when I go to some of these events, and what my wife thinks I'm batshit, but that's another whole problem. What could possibly go wrong? I'm 68. Hello, but I would wear these badges around my neck, as part of my costume, and because that was the source of my superpower. I listen and learn from the smartest people in the world about this stuff. Then COVID hit, so no conferences. So I started like a show, and I use air quotes, and I've had the privilege of interviewing well over 300 of the smartest people in the world about this stuff like you. And so that's my origin story.
Fantastic. I think it's really interesting. I mean, that's one thing is we do want to surround ourselves, with a lot of smart people, and going to those conferences is a great way to do that. It's, where you really kind of, sometimes people say if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So, and which rings true is that you want to find those who you can learn from and that you can talk to and to be educated.
And I think a part of that, forgive the interruption, but to build on that point, I think, just embracing your own ignorance, like it's cool to be dumb, in my brain, because that way you're open, you're actually absorbing, you're listening, you're showing, people respect. You would spend their whole careers on this stuff. These are, people like you, they're unsung heroes. I adopted that. My mission was to shine the light on the unsung cyber heroes who toil in anonymity to keep us safe at work, at home, at school.
Because I mean,
So there's a superhero thing.
Absolutely. I mean, because a lot of this success and wins happens in the background, and I think that's the shame. That's the sad part.
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
all of the things that we do so well never gets the public visibility. People
Right.
don't like to talk about the wins and successes because it sometimes puts you, as a next target. It means that people want to, the attackers want to be challenged. So we don't talk about it enough. We don't share them, at least, in the public knowledge. So all the news tends to be just the bad news. There's no channel for the good stuff. And so, I get it, but sometimes you might want to make some of the wins and successes anonymous so it doesn't put you to the target. But we do need to find a proper forum to sharing some of that, because I think, I've been in this industry for a long time, over 30 years. And I remember I had so much memories from my early time in my career. There's times where when you're laughing so hard that your stomach and everything hurts.
Yeah,
And I do
exactly.
miss those times. I do miss those times in the career. And I remember some of the really early times when I was doing a hospital digital transformation. And when we're talking about digital transformation, we're talking about true digital transformation. It was taking typewriters out of the data analyst desks and replacing them with computers.
Wow.
And back then they'd done their training before. So, and this was in 1991, they did their training in Windows 3.1. But by the time we actually got to deploy it, it was already Windows 95. So the
Wow.
thing, it had changed quite a bit, and the technology was all, as we always see it, it's advancing so fast. And the calls I got, I was so, I remember somebody saying that the drinks holder wouldn't stay out. And I'm going, what drinks holder are you talking about? like, what's going on? So, and of course, you go and show me, show me. And those times, it was easy to find the users and talk with them. And so I went, so show me what the problem is. And they opened up the CD tray because then it was for CDs, not even DVDs at that point. And they were putting the drink in the CD tray. Uh,
Uh,
and sometimes, you know, it wasn't popping out for long enough and they wouldn't be able to put their drink in. They're like, oh
my
my goodness,
God, that's hysterical.
and also, other people's like, the mouse, or not the mouse, it was the foot pedal's not working. I'm going, what foot pedal? And for those who used to have the typewriters and dictation machines before, there was a foot pedal for
Yeah,
stopping and
right.
starting the dictation. And they're like, they had the mouse on the floor and they were stumping it with their foot. Those,
Oh my God.
and I laugh so hard. I mean, even someone like, I worked in support teams over the years. I had people on my team that sometimes it just takes somebody with a certain personality that can take something that can be very serious, but also turn it around and just make you laugh. There's situations, I think we really need that again in the industry. I think we need to find a way to bring back laughter. And I do see it. I mean, there's little bits of it we see there in here. We see, we use a lot of memes. The memes still are, our way of sometimes venting.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've seen some funny memes recently, a lot of some of the outages about how fragile our infrastructure and everything is, but they're very lighthearted. So for me, I think I would love to find a way and also make it not, actionable as well, is to really take some of the things that we do on a day-to-day basis and just let's turn it around to make it, let's say, much more the information received can make us laugh again. And so, I mean, I remember I had a guest on the podcast not so long ago, and he said, it's one of the things, the industry we're in, we are the bringers of bad news. We do deliver bad news, and we don't talk about our successes enough because we're afraid that will actually make us, be a target. So we have to find a way. How do we rebrand ourselves? Of the industry of fun. Back, I think when I started, it was the industry of fun, and now it's become the industry of fun. What's some of the things you would suggest to really kind of like, and we want to turn it into something as well. How do we attract new talent as well? Because if we're struggling, if we are the industry of the scary fun tactics, it's definitely where new talent are going to be looking at this industry and going, there's other industries which are much more fun. Going to the AI side, and starting to look at that field, or data and analytics and other robotics, drones. There's other industries which has much more fun and entertainment than the cybersecurity world. What's your ideas? I mean, you come from the comic world and the fun world and the marketing side. What was your suggestions or some of the things that we can do? What's some of the things we can start with in order to make it fun?
Yeah, I mean, well, right now, this conversation, establishing a predicate or a rationale or, a problem, statement, so to speak, is a good place to start, and I think it's all about, in my case, space, and it can be the digital universe as a concept, space, but I think it's also space between people, so this conversation, so if you just think about, if you were to play back what we've recorded thus far, I love listening. That's fun for me. And so I've learned so much from you just now by creating this space, which I can refer to as, in a different way, psychological air to breathe. It's like, a collective like that. And so how do you do that? So in my instance, I spend a lot of time just listening to people, and that for them is like fun. Having kind of a safe, relaxed place, exactly what your intention is for your show is a great way to start. So I would tell you, just like right off the bat, we should collaborate and do this, and from fun to fun. I mean, can be an art or something like that. So that's, I think, sort of the philosophy or the strategy, about how to go about this. In terms of actually engaging the joyous part of our brains and the stomach, like laughing so hard that, your stomach hurts. Like in my case, when this very important man said, well, it's not really for beginners. I was crying from laughing. So I'm not advocating saying obvious stuff, per se in various forms of communication. What I'm advocating is reigniting, here's a good one, the inner child of adults. And so that's a very foundational principle to accomplish what it is that we're talking about from my perspective, because, not to get like too introspective, because I'm incredibly shallow, just so you know, to put it out there, but I'll give it a go. You know, when we're children, little children, everything is cool. Everything is fun. Everything is new. Everything is exciting. And I just had my 2.5 year old granddaughter 2 days ago bumped her head on a table and had to get 5 stitches, and she thought like that was cool. I mean, I wouldn't, and I
Because
didn't.
I think that's a great way is how we perceive things sometimes.
Right.
And I've seen some of those situations where we're turning something that can be very scary, but making it actually interesting and fun.
Exactly.
Like I've seen people where they bump their head and they have some stitches, but then basically they put something like a Harry Potter sticker on it. And then,
Exactly.
they talk about, then becoming the fantasy world and, that they're becoming like a wizard. I think
Yeah,
those things
exactly.
turn something off like what is scary and turn it into something that can be actually quite lighthearted and fun. We can then see things in a very different light. I remember just even with my kids, my daughter had a couple of spots, and now what they're doing is rather than trying to hide them, they're actually getting stickers and patches which actually show like stars and colors and how we kind of like display things, rather than trying to hide things, we may put it on and showing that actually it can be fun.
That's the space. That's what I was referring to. You're creating the psychological air for her to breathe, or him to breathe. And to pivot from FUD to fun. I go back to that again because it's really, really for me was a North Star, to get through the do you swear? What is the policy of swearing on your
Or you
show?
can swear. I'll have to beat them later, maybe at some point. Certain platforms might require an age,
Right.
but I can bleed them out because I have to do the post editing anyway. So, but
Well,
what I do is I change them into maybe other words, which is fun. So because me being from so for the audience, they know that I'm originally from Ireland, and one of the things is that and originally actually from North, so
huh?
my vocabulary, it can be quite vulgar at some points, depending on the audience or nationality. And when I went to university in the U.S. in Louisville, Kentucky, and everyone just like looking at me when I was talking. It's like, how could this person be saying?
He
And
has a potty mouth.
I literally I had to change my words. And my family
That's
laugh at me.
funny.
My family laugh at me now because certain words that I say, because I've kind of programmed my head to say certain things, and all of a sudden a different word comes out. So the F word for me is now frigate.
Well, okay, you just happened to shine the light on a great answer. Wait a minute. You really just answering the question you posed to me quite well by just reframing it with different words.
Hmm.
Words matter
Absolutely,
a
words
lot.
and context. Words and context is everything in
Right.
communication.
So in cybersecurity, for example, or AI or whatever the topic is, but in this context, we're talking about cybersecurity, maybe there's a way to have the community sort of writ large to submit alternative words to describe the same things that are more along the lighthearted or fun side. I was just thinking about it right now that it came to mind, which is we did that about hacks. We created 16 characters. So Vernon the virus, Boris the bug, Ivan the identity thief, and Wilbur WannaCry for ransomware. And this industry does do that. The community comes up with fun, sort of quirky names, to label very serious things. So I wonder, is that would help? Like just, creating a community dictionary that's just funny, you
Absolutely,
know,
we do need the
that still
character.
conveys real information. The other thing I would say in context of our conversation is I think we want to make this stuff cool, to attract new people, to the industry. And, there are many ways of making this stuff cool without revealing the trade secrets, so to speak, or like what you were saying a little bit earlier, but, making this stuff cool and making it fun, is a great mission. I'd love to help, or, your audience, I'm sure, would have some great ideas.
Absolutely. I think it always reminds me back, and to your point, the comic books story is, I remember years ago when I was working a major risk assessment for a large transportation company. And it was like kind of the very mundane governance risk assessment. It's
Right. Yeah.
not fun. But we were doing it for months. We find that how we were delivering the cybersecurity awareness training it was just awareness training at the time. And what we end up doing, we find that it was causing friction. Employees didn't like it. We were not communicating effectively. We were talking about very techie terms, and it was a disaster. Just continually, our train was off the rails, and we weren't really finding our way. And it was a funny time where I remember we were sitting in this really nice conference room, and all of a sudden, one of the we heard this noise down the corridor, and we're like, damn it, somebody go and tell that other room, to be quiet. We're trying to think really hard here and come up with solutions that are solving big problems. The person goes to the next room and comes back and starts laughing. He says, "That's actually a room full of kids." And we're going, "What? What's kids doing?" So we end up finding that it was actually in the company. They had to bring your kids to the office day in order
Oh my God.
to show them this is where the parents go, and this is what they do, and this is how they provide for the family. And it was kind of interesting. We were just like, "Oh, bring your kids to the office day." And somebody turned around and said in the room, it's like, "Well, it's like kids, they're kind of like the executives. They have about the same attention span. Why don't we go, why don't we go and ask them the questions we're looking for answers for?" And
Wow.
it was that moment. It's like, "Oh, this is interesting." It just brought a bit of fun to the real serious problem we were trying to solve. So we got permission. We said, "Can we go ask the kids a bunch of questions?" And for them, it was actually, "Oh, this is interesting," because then, we're getting to work, because we told them, it's like, "This is a work task. We're like, you're now helping your parents and stuff with solving these big problems." So we get in the room, we presented, and the kids were just like looking at us like, "Come on, I have no idea what you're talking about." So as we were presenting, we're talking about like delivering awareness training, measuring it, like how to make it effective. And then one kid puts their hands up and said, "Hey, why don't you put it into a comic book?" And we're just like, and the light switch just came on. It was just like, oh my goodness, that solves so many of the problems that we were challenged with. It's about translations, about simplifying it, about making it entertainment, about making it understandable. So we end up finding that turning it into like a picture storyboard page that basically was relaying simple awareness messages, like, not plugging USB sticks into the computer without checking it first, and not clicking on links that you don't know or are not expecting from emails. Just very simple things that simply putting it into a comic story that meant that it was very much to your point, is that, it's not the dummies, baseline, which in a lot of people, you have this certain level of tech understanding. This is a dummies true, is that no one has any idea, and they haven't started on it. I think you're going down to the very basic level. If you can get kids to understand it, or your grandparents to understand it, then you're really communicating effectively, because you're getting that full spectrum. And then the second thing was, another kid put their hand up in the room, and we're just like, first of all, we're just enlightened. Oh my goodness, we're solving problems with a bunch of kids here that we actually have been struggling with for weeks. And then all of a sudden, the kid puts his hands up, and we're like, "Oh, you'll have something to say as well." I said, "Why do you put them on the back of bathroom doors?" "Because everyone needs to go to the bathroom at least once or twice a day." And my goodness, another light bulb came on, and we're just like, oh my, for us, it was just one of those moments of like, perfect situations that we just happened to be conference rooms. It happened to be that day, bring your kids to the office day. And we just had the right kids that we could actually ask challenging questions, and they simplified it for us. And
Well, I
sometimes,
mean, but the bathroom, I just want to expand on that. The bathroom is perfect because of use cases. Like everyone has them many times a day, and at my age, too many times a day. But that's a different story. But I go back again just because you keep shining the light. I think in a very important way on the inner child of adults. So for example, can I show you something that we recently did?
absolutely,
A comic.
you have to explain it as well for the audience, because some of the audience
Yeah,
will be
yeah.
audio
No,
only.
well, I'll just show you. So this is a recent comic that we did, and the thing about this comic is it's for adults, but the inner child, because mission, what this particular client wanted was to anthropomorphize four of their products and to distill the complexity of the technology underneath them into something people could get their heads around. And so we just created these characters that represented the products, and it was a resounding hit because also for that one, we put a QR code so that if someone wanted to learn more about the actual products or get a demo, it would take them to the website and stuff like that. So this notion of inner child of adults is, I think, very powerful, and I think it's especially true now. Before we hit the record button, we were talking about the prefrontal cortex of the brain has only been around for a relatively short period compared to the reptilian brain, and the pace of change is too fast for us to absorb, and it causes a cognitive dissonance and stress, to put it mildly. And so now is a great time to take a breath, try to distill this into something that appeals to the inner child, which, by the way, is where joy resides in people, and everyone wants to laugh. That's a universal thing around the world. I'm sure there's studies about this, but I'm making that assumption that people like laughing. And it's probably accurate to say, or at least generally accurate to say, that the same things make people laugh around the world, more or less. And so this is an innate survival technique or something that releases, serotonin, things like that to make you happy. So I don't know. I'm really glad that you're doing this. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's like through my career, I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I see that we need to bring back the topics, and to your point is that bringing back the inner child and the things that does entertain us and make our really tough day job entertaining and fun. And some of the ways, the ways that, as it mentions, the comic book style. And I think really what I've seen is one of the great things, areas that I've seen in the last couple of years is around the gamification of how we learn.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
for
that's
sure.
really the evolution that we, I wish that was something that when I was growing up and studying, that was a capability then, because it is so much fun. And there's the challenge aspect is really true gamification. Another thing I think, as I mentioned earlier, is about we also need a way to celebrate the wins, even if it's internally in the organizations. We do need to make sure that security is showing to the rest of the business and showing that they are doing something, even when the rest of the employees are not seeing anything and it's all quiet and just somebody always says that cybersecurity is almost like basically the plumbing, or it's like the waste disposal team, is that it just happens in the background. You don't see it when it doesn't work. It's a real bad situation. And that's literally
Yeah.
something what we are, is we do make the rest of we do make the entire systems work. And I think also the humor memes, which is again something we see coming from the comic style as well. We take something of an image and just becomes a life on its own sometimes. I think one thing that we should do much better on is the storytelling aspects. I don't think
Yeah. Oh,
organizations
yeah.
are really good. Some focus too much in the tech talk, and I see that a lot of times when I go to the conferences and trade shows, and I'm looking around, I'm seeing buzzwords, I'm seeing big marketing FUD words, big scare tactics, over promises, because they do so much. And when I think about it, is that we really need to get the simplistic message of how to get back to very basic storytelling, and storytelling that is in a positive way. And I think that's something, if we take all of those ingredients, and making it also human centric as well, because a lot of the technology, we focus a lot on the automation and the resiliency and how it's helping the business. But at the end of the day, it really fundamentally, the one thing that, going back to the story I was telling earlier about the transportation company, one thing that during that entire scenario that we realized is that cybersecurity started at home. It starts at the home. It starts basically not at the employee's laptop, not at the company's systems and servers, but it starts, there's the employee, and then there's the employee's social sphere, the people they interact with. And it was interesting because one, we did that, and it came from, again, those kids in the conference room, is that when we realized that actually, cybersecurity starts with a family. And that was ultimately kind of where we were taking it away from that kind of realization. And this organization decided that actually, we're not just going to protect the employees' company devices, but we're going to protect the employees' personal devices. And we're also going to
Brilliant. Yeah,
licenses
really.
to the rest of the family, to their immediate family, the parents, the kids, the partners, whoever it might be. And that was kind of like, you're thinking, my goodness, that was really democratizing. We talk about cybersecurity, it's not something that everyone can get, but in that case, for those employees, it was actually extending it to the community even further. And I think those are the moments that we should share, that we should emphasize, and we should look to achieve, is how do we make cybersecurity not just, really democratize it and make it something that everybody can have, but also make it fun at the same time, make it something that actually is rewarding, make it entertaining at the same time.
Well, that's brilliant. And I ran into that some years ago with some circumstances that basically revealed what you were saying, which is, people do what they care about at the office.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about awareness training, or they'll do what they care about, or what they're compensated for, or what they're measured about, and what they care about is exactly what you said. That's their children
Mm-hmm.
or their family at home, and to build a bridge between those two also has the unintended benefit, or perhaps intended benefit, of letting them know what their parents do and that it's cool,
Absolutely.
because they
Absolutely.
like to take the kids to work day. So it sort of checks off on several different boxes. And I loved that idea.
Yeah, and we should do more of those types of activities as well. I think that's the things that I know it's a little bit more challenging today in the hybrid workforce, and a lot of employees working remotely. But I think we should, companies and the talent team should really kind of look to go beyond the traditional methods, of basically training and engagement, and really make it something that's it goes beyond the company. We see it sometimes. Some companies do these like a community events. They have the cleaning up the community, feeding and stuff like that, or just doing some type of let's say green activities and stuff like that, or sports activities. I think doing more of those will actually reconnect the companies with the employees more.
Well, and reconnect people with one another. And, in the United States, there's a really excellent initiative that it started with Girl Scouts some years ago, can earn merit badges for different things in cybersecurity. And now with AI as well. And the Boy Scouts here in the United States also have that. So you get acknowledgement, patches that you can wear with pride because you've come to understand some aspect or whatever the curriculum is, that leads to it. And I think being proud of who you are. Here's this is a very foundational thing about me, and I'll say it to you now, to you, Joe, which is thanks for who you are, for what you do, and why you do it. People thrive on that. We need acknowledgement just as people are part of a larger society and things. And we are not very quick, especially under stressful conditions, to offer those things. So I'm like one of the few guys that probably, gives $1 tip to a local sub shop person, and like they're look up at me like, what? Thank you so much, or whatever. You say, I like your shoes,
Hmm.
assuming you're not being a sycophant or anything like that, or just this morning, went to the gym and I was leaving, and there was a mother with a young boy who had like sort of this swim outfit on. I said, I bet you're a great mother. And she like was shocked. He says, well, I like to think so, So here's another sort of concept that could be incorporated into this thought process, which is something small that's unexpected is oftentimes more appreciated than something large that is,
Yes,
you know,
it's the small things that accumulate.
small, unexpected gifts,
Hmm.
can be a simple word or phrase. Again, I said earlier, I'm quite shallow and I want to stay in that lane for a moment, but I think that stuff works. And so maybe like in cybersecurity or artificial intelligence or in life, maybe there's a way to leverage technology, like you were telling me earlier that you created a cool agent to help with note taking or reminders. Maybe there's a way to do that, just send out cybersecurity thank yous or things like that are easy peasy to effectuate. But
Absolutely.
ironically, I suck at tech, so I'll have to leave that up to you. but I want to be a partner, right? I mean, I'm saying this in the recording. So, and I'm
Absolutely.
Forrest Gump, so we can do whatever you want. I'll just say,
Well,
okay.
we can change the world. It can be done
Or
to
at
to
least my wife, you
so
get, you,
so Gary, I mean, what's the things that you do? And I mean, I know for me, what I do is to keep myself entertained, and sometimes even for me is just spending time with my parents because my parents are just absolutely hilarious. I
I'm
mean,
sure.
it's nonstop like joke after. It's just joke after joke after joke, and it's so much fun. Recently, I had a great time spending a week with them, and just it was so I that was when I laughed really hard. It was the moments with my parents.
Yeah, I love it.
Other things I also, as I like comedy clubs and comedy shows, and I
Yeah.
try to surround myself, with fun entertainment. I don't like the sarcastic type of comedian or comedy, but I like the ones that just make lighthearted of everyday things. So, what do you do to keep yourself entertained? So what's the
Well,
resources you do? What's your method of staying happy and fun?
well, you want to see, I can show you visual if you want to see it. You want to see it?
I mean, I'll have to explain. I'll have to describe it for the audience, but absolutely.
Oh, well, oh yeah, I'll show you. So look at my shorts.
We're getting a full display of was it orange shorts you got on today?
It's an orange bathing suit, for God's sakes.
Orange bathing suit.
But
You're probably
but
going ready for a swim after this.
no, I just like wearing orange. It's a happy color.
It is a happy.
Yeah, but you mentioned about your parents, and I can just tell you what happened about an hour ago. So my 97-year young mom, I take her shopping once a week, and she has two things that she loves doing. One is she goes to something called the dollar store here in the States, which is not a dollar, by the way, anymore.
Which is not that you'll be lucky to find anything that's $1 in the store.
What was that F word? Did you say friggin'? What was your?
Frigate,
Yeah, yeah.
and then
It's
sugar is the other one. Sugar is
it's
the
both of
alternative.
those. But here's the funny part. She's hysterical, really. And so this morning, she asked if I could come over. It's a bit of a schlep to a drive to get there and stuff. And I'm working during the day. We're going to see her on Thanksgiving and take her to see Wicked, the
Oh, okay, yeah.
the movie that, of course, I'm sure you're familiar with, just opened up here in the States. So that's fun, taking a 97-year-old woman to see Wicked. But this morning, she said, "Oh, can you come over?" I said, "Oh, what did you need, from the store?" She says, "Well, last week, you bought coconut water that was not on sale." And you tell your audience, I just hit myself in the head. And I go, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, it was $6 a bottle or container, and it's supposed to have been 2 for 1." So I took a deep breath. I said, "Mom, so you want me to drive all the way down there, take you, wheelchair and everything, in and out of the car, wheel you into the return section of the grocery store so that you can get a total of $4 back when it costs me $20 of gas or whatever," and stuff like that. And I just busted out laughing. I said, "Mommy, my bad. I mean, you raised me wrong. Really. I should know what a sale is, and I just can offer you no excuse, but I can offer you buy one, get one free next time. And I'll take you to Wicked. Is that fine?" And she thought about it. Okay.
That'll do.
So
That'll do.
that yeah, yeah, exactly. It'll do, pigs, from that show. Anyway, so I do whenever possible try to see the lighter sides of things, and I've sort of trained myself to have like the very first filter of sensory input, whether it be something I see or hear or feel or taste, into something funny. And that's like a muscle. I don't know the science behind it, but I bet the more you use a sense of humor, the stronger it gets. And so that's like my first filter. And it is off-putting to some people, because, well, no, I mean, I can lose credibility. So like I've done all kinds of crazy stuff when I present in a conference or something, serious thing, whatever. That's why at the beginning of this conversation I asked,
It's
it was really a stupid thing to
fun.
say. Yeah, I mean, like, okay, 1 being fun, 10 being, terrifying, and I can sort of go depending on stories. I can make people cry. but I can make them cry from laughter, or I can make them cry for holy cow.
From shock.
Look at what this guy went through, So um,
But I
that's what
think
I
it's
do. Those are
I
some
think it's
filters that I use.
better than the alternative. I think it's important that we all have, and I think for the audience that, listening to what myself and Gary's talking about is that it's a skill that, you have to learn over time, is that when things happen that you have that immediate emotional reaction. And
That's right.
sometimes it's important to just take a pause and breathe, and just, whether it being 30 seconds, and just consuming and thinking about, like, what's the positive of outcome of all of these things. And I think it's even for me in my job, I've been in all of customer support, I've been into response, I've been in security research, and in every single moment when you get in a situation where you're like, it brings out, the grumpiness, as you said earlier, is that moment is just take the pause, take 30 seconds in order to breathe, and just really think about, what's the positive here? What, or what, that it's maybe not as bad as what you initially your initial
It's
reaction.
never as bad. There is science behind this. I don't know this particulars. Essentially, there were two findings from this massive sociological study, one of which says things are never as bad as you think they're going to be, and they're never as good as you think they're going to be either. So from a
I think
philosophical standpoint, I would say, work on being as level as you can, given life happens. The other thing that you asked me about, specifically, one of the things that I do for sure is I really am self-effacing, and like calling myself the Forrest Gump of cybersecurity. I mean, I've interviewed people from everything from basic cyber hygiene to post-quantum cryptography. So I have picked up a few things, over time. I don't just do superhero comics. I did some things with the National Security Commission on Artificial Intelligence. And, I'm an advisor to, AI startup right now that is working to add a layer of truth to replace foundational models and stuff like that. However, I really just first, go to the lighter side of things. And that's habit, and I was not always that way. I told you I was in a very dark place for a long time. Anybody would have been. And one day I just said, okay, this sucks. And, I'm going to try something else. And over time, it's taken me 10 years to be this funny. Okay. I mean, and so talk about a standard. It's taken me 10 years. The rest of your audience is screwed.
Oh, so that always reminds me of the Seinfeld episode where you have to do the opposite of everything you've normally done. So you do complete opposite.
Yeah.
So George does the opposite of everything you would normally do from the start to finish. Is always fun. You see the outcomes of it, which is always interesting.
It's not a bad idea, actually, to try to change, habits. And I myself, I've been on a big health kit since this morning. You missed that one. You didn't get
The
it.
health
That
kit.
was a joke. I was on the. I'll do it again. I know you're a little slow. Okay, all right. I was. I started. I'm on a big health kick, and then You wait 2 beats. I started this morning.
Okay, now I get it.
Yeah, there you go. Well, it wasn't that funny in the
I
first
haven't
place.
had my coffee today, which is normally what I need to
Yeah.
kickstart my engine.
Although I have to say, I do have an actual data sort of joke, only one.
Okay,
You wanna hear it?
yeah, absolutely. Yes, we're good for jokes here.
What do you tell your computer when it did a good job?
What do you
Attaboy.
think? Oh, that's great. I do have a dad joke to kind of add here is, why did the computer go to therapy?
Wait, why did you call my joke a dad joke?
No, I didn't call it a dad joke.
Yes, well, okay.
So my
Go ahead,
son,
Dad.
yeah, my son, well, I'm a dad, so my son's always telling me dad jokes here. So he was like, why did the computer go to therapy?
Why?
Because it had too many bad bites and couldn't handle the fishing.
Oh, that's good. All right. All right, we're gonna go down that rabbit hole. Okay, this is a relevant one about 1 month ago, if you think of Halloween. What is Um, Halloween's favorite type of wood?
Not sure what is.
Bamboo.
That is a good one.
What is Halloween's favorite type of wood? Hollywood. That's all I got. Right. There you go.
So Gary, if the audience does have any questions and they do want to follow up later, what do you
If your
wait,
audience does not have any questions about what they're hearing, they're not paying attention.
No, they will do. What's the best way for them to connect with you, to reach out? Is there a site, social media? What's the best way for the audience if they do have questions to follow up with you on?
Yeah, I'm just on LinkedIn, Gary Berman, and you'll see I'm a guy in a mask and a superhero cape, so sort of hard to miss. And my website is cyberheroescomics.com, and we put up different things, like some of our comics and stuff like that, and some interviews, things like that.
Fantastic. And I'll make sure that all of those links are in the show notes, so it's much easier for the audience to get to and find you.
Thanks.
So Gary, it's been awesome having you on. I mean, for me, this is the highlight of my week many times, is to really get to talk to fun, amazing people who are making the world a safer place. And thank you for the work that you're doing in order to make it fun and to make it lighthearted, and to really take sometimes the serious world that we live in and to really have that moment where we step back and we say, what is the positive? What is the advantages and what's the outcomes that we're doing that is making the world a safer place? So thank you for everything you're doing.
You're welcome. My question to you is very straightforward. Did you have fun?
I did have fun. Absolutely.
Then mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. I think, hope for the audience, hopefully this is a kind of wake-up call for you as well, is that, we do live in a world where sometimes the seriousness takes over. And hopefully you find this episode, to really allow you to re-engage and to think about and take that pause and think about what is the positive, what is the fun thing, what does make you happy, and really trying to make that the dominant part of your day. And really, it will change your life. It will change your mood. It will change your health. It'll revitalize you. So hopefully, this is something that will make the rest of your week and the rest of your life make a difference. At least that's my hope. My hope is to entertain you and hopefully make the world a safer place while doing so. So for everyone, this is a Security by Default podcast. I'm the host of the show, Joe Carson. Every 2 weeks, we bring new episodes, new ideas, creativity, fun, make the world a safer place at the same time. So take care, everyone. Stay safe until the next time. Thank you. Well, that's a wrap for this episode of the Security by Default podcast. I'm Joseph Carson, and again, many thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and share, and please stay safe. And until the next time, we'll see you soon.